Chosen one, there is a holy interruption unfolding in your life, and heaven is the one who initiated it. You are not here by accident. You were summoned into this moment by divine appointment, drawn into a timeline where God Himself is unveiling what has already been written over you. Anointed one, the signs around you are not imagination. They are confirmation that the God who restores, the God who accelerates, the God who lifts without warning, has stepped into your story with supernatural intent. You are standing at the threshold of a breakthrough that was preserved for its appointed time, just as it is written in Habakkuk 2-3, that the vision will come and it will not delay. What looked lost is being returned. What felt denied is being rewritten. What you thought was over is rising again under the weight of divine funding, moving in your favor. Chosen one, heaven is shifting outcomes, aligning steps, and preparing a transfer that cannot be stopped, because your future has already been safeguarded. And in the quiet places of your spirit, even now, you can feel the truth of it. Chosen one, there is a reason your spirit has been feeling that quiet pressure, that subtle stirring that refuses to let you settle where you are. Something holy is moving toward you. Something that has been building behind the veil long before you ever prayed for help. Long before you ever knew how deeply heaven had already committed to your future. Anointed one, what is unfolding around you right now is not coincidence. It is divine orchestration timed with the same precision God used when He spoke light into darkness. You are standing in a threshold moment, and heaven is funding what comes next. I want you to hear this with your whole soul. There are seasons in life when you are surviving, pushing, enduring, trying to make sense of closed doors and silent nights. And then there are seasons, sacred ones, when God steps in and rewrites everything at once. I have lived long enough, prayed long enough, been humbled enough to recognize the difference. And chosen one, the atmosphere around you right now carries the same holy weight I have felt before every major breakthrough in my own life. The same shift that saved me from collapse. The same shift that lifted me in ways I could not have orchestrated with my own strength. That is the shift hovering over you now. Anointed one, everything they tried to use to limit you has become evidence against them in the courts of heaven. Every trap, every delay, every dismissal, every moment when someone underestimated your worth, God has gathered all of it into His hands. Not to shame you with the past, but to resource you for the future. Heaven does not just restore what you lost. Heaven multiplies what you endured. I learned that in my own wilderness, but just when I had nothing left to hold on to, God reminded me that the vision will surely come just as it is written in Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3. Not fast, not slow, appointed. Chosen one, your appointed time is approaching like a rising storm of goodness, alignment, and supernatural provision. You may not see the full expression of it yet, but you can feel it. Something in you has been waking up. Something has been whispering, "Get ready." Something in your chest has been burning, even on the days when everything around you seems still. That is not intuition. That is not optimism. That is the inner witness of someone who has been marked for divine elevation. Anointed one, heaven is reviewing your endurance, your obedience, your character, your refusal to give up when every logical reason said you should have collapsed. And because of that, something rare is being released in your direction, a supernatural provision that cannot be explained by hard work or human strategy. Chosen one, your obedience in hidden seasons has accumulated spiritual equity. Heaven keeps records that earth does not see. Every time you stayed kind when cruelty hit your heart, every time you forgave instead of retaliating, every time you kept going when life offered you no applause, these moments were not wasted. They became currency in the unseen realm. And now that currency is maturing into supernatural funding, Anointed One, the resources assigned to your name are no longer pending. They are active. Heaven does not fund noise. Heaven funds necessity. Heaven funds destiny. Heaven funds those who survive deserts without losing their oil. And you, Anointed One, have proven that your heart can carry what your calling requires. Go to the comments right now and type, "The Lord remembered my name." Let that be the declaration of this threshold moment. Subscribe, because the word coming through this channel carries the next layer of what heaven is releasing over the appointed ones in this season. Now, do not leave this moment yet, because I need to take you to a place called Shiloh. 1 Samuel chapter 1. A woman named Hannah, and a prayer that was so intense, so physically visible in its desperation, that the priest watching her thought she was drunk. Let me tell you what Hannah was carrying, before I tell you what Hannah received. Because the receiving will only land as deeply as it needs to if you first understand the carrying. Hannah was married to a man named Elkanah, and Elkanah loved her. The text says specifically, he loved Hannah. He gave her a double portion. He saw what she was carrying. He said to her, "Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" He was trying. He loved her, and it was not enough. Not because his love was insufficient, because what Hannah was waiting for was not something love could produce. It required the Lord to open the womb. And the text says specifically, the Lord had closed her womb, not circumstance, not biology as they understood it. The Lord had closed it, and the adversary in the household was a woman named Peninnah, the other wife who had children. And Peninnah provoked Hannah year after year, because the Lord had closed her womb. I want to speak to the Peninnah in your life. Not a specific person necessarily. The specific category of adversary that is attached to the very thing you are waiting for. Peninnah's provocation was not general. It was targeted. She provoked her about the specific thing that was closed, not about her appearance, not about her character, about the womb. The adversary does not waste energy provoking you about things that do not matter. He provokes about the specific thing that is in the process of being opened, because the opening is near and the provocation escalates when access is close, and Hannah wept and would not eat. Year after year, she went up to Shiloh. She wept before the Lord. She would not eat. And Elkanah tried. And finally, one year, Hannah arose after they had eaten at Shiloh. The text says she was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly, and she made a vow. She said, "O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life." I want to stop here, because this vow is the most dangerous prayer in the room. Hannah was not asking for a son to have a son. She was asking for a son to give him back. She was asking for the very thing she was most desperate for, and attaching to the request the commitment to return what was given. The vow said, "What I am asking for is not for me to keep. It is yours. I am asking to be the vessel through which you bring what you have already planned into the visible world. And chosen one, I want to speak to the quality of this prayer, because the desperate prayer and the surrendered prayer are usually treated as opposites. We think desperate means holding on. Surrendered means letting go. Hannah's prayer was both simultaneously. She wept bitterly. She was in bitterness of soul, and she vowed to give back what she was asking for. The desperation and the surrender were not in tension in her prayer. They were the same act. She held it so completely that the only logical extension of holding it that completely was to give it back. That is what the funded future looks like in the spirit, not the prayer that holds loosely as a spiritual discipline. The prayer that holds so completely that the holding becomes releasing. Now, let me tell you what Eli saw. Because Eli, the priest, was sitting at the doorpost of the temple. He was watching her mouth, and Hannah was speaking in her heart. Only her lips moved. Her voice was not heard. And Eli thought she was drunk. He said, "How long will you go on being drunk? Put away your wine." And Hannah answered, "No, my lord, I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman. I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation all this time." Eli said, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made to him." Now I want to speak to being misread by the priest, because this is one of the most important details in the text for the person in the long waiting season. The priest, the spiritual authority in the room, looked at the most genuine act of desperate prayer and called it drunkenness. He saw the lips moving without sound. He saw the grief on the face. He saw the physical expression of spiritual desperation, and he said, "You are drunk." Hannah was not drunk. Hannah was in the most honest conversation she had ever had with God, in the most raw, visible, unedited state of her real condition that she had ever allowed herself to occupy in a public space, and the person who should have recognized it misread it. Chosen one. I want to speak to this because I believe it is the detail that is most needed for the specific person watching tonight. Your most genuine season of pressing into God, the season that looked to observers like grief, like crisis, like spiritual instability, was not what it looked like. It was Hannah's lips moving without sound. It was the prayer that was too deep for volume. It was the communication between a desperate soul and the God of hosts that did not require an audience. And the people who should have recognized it may have called it something else. Weakness, imbalance, lack of faith, drama. And you carried the weight of the misread on top of the weight of the waiting. Eli's correction of his misreading did not undo the fact that he misread. But the Lord did not need Eli to read it correctly for the answer to come. The Lord heard the prayer that Eli thought was drunkenness. And the text says, the Lord remembered Hannah. The Lord remembered Hannah. That phrase, it does not mean God had forgotten. It means the accounting was complete. It means the appointed time and the maturity of the asking and the depth of the endurance had converged at exactly the moment the text describes. The Lord remembered Hannah, and in due time Hannah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Samuel, which sounds like heard by God. She named the answer to the prayer after the fact that God had heard it. The name was the testimony. Every time she called him, she was saying, I was heard, chosen one. I want to speak to what is being named in this season of your life. The thing that is being conceived, the thing that is being born out of the season of weeping, and the season of not eating, and the season of lips moving without sound, is going to carry the testimony of the hearing in its name. When it arrives, you will look at it and know that the God of hosts heard what was too deep for volume. Not because the waiting was easy, because the waiting was real, and the Lord remembered. Now, let me release what heaven is declaring over the specific areas of your life. Over your finances, I declare, Elkanah gave Hannah a double portion. Every year when they went up to Shiloh, he gave to Hannah a double portion because he loved her, and because the Lord had closed her womb. The The provision was doubled in the season when the primary thing was closed. Chosen one, I want to speak to the provision that has been arriving in the season of the closed thing. The resource that showed up not proportional to what was open, but proportional to the love of the one who saw what was still waiting to be opened. Deuteronomy 8:18 says God gives you the power to produce wealth to confirm his covenant. The double portion in the closed season was the covenant provision, not the answer yet, not the opened womb, but the evidence that the Father saw the condition and doubled the portion anyway. In the next 21 days, a provision will arrive that carries the signature of the double portion, not the answer to the primary prayer yet. The evidence that heaven sees the waiting, the evidence that the double portion is still being given in the season before the opening. Receive it as Elkanah's gift, the love behind the doubling, not the answer to the prayer, but the proof that you are seen in the waiting. Over your calling, I declare, Hannah gave Samuel to the Lord. The text says, as long as he lives, he is given to the Lord. And Samuel became the voice of God to an entire generation. He was the prophet who heard the voice when the word of the Lord was rare and visions were not widespread. He was called by name in the night Samuel, and learned to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant hears." And he was the one who anointed David. The son born out of the womb that was closed, given back to the one who opened it, became the hinge on which the entire story of the Davidic covenant turned. Chosen one. What is being born out of the closed season, the assignment that is forming in the womb of the waiting, is not for you to hold. It is for you to pour. The way Hannah poured, the way the alabaster box broke, and what is poured back into the assignment becomes the instrument that anoints the next generation. Your calling is not the thing you are asking for. Your calling is what you do with it after the Lord opens the womb. And Samuel is already being formed. Over your identity, I declare, after Hannah gave Samuel to Eli and left him at Shiloh, the text says she prayed, and the prayer she prayed was not a prayer of grief for what she gave away. It was a prayer of triumph. She said, "My heart exults in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth derides my enemies, because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none holy like the Lord. There is none besides you. There is no rock like our God." She talked about the strong stumbling in their strength. She talked about the hungry being fed and the full hiring themselves out for bread. She talked about the barren bearing 7 and the one with many children becoming fallow. She talked about the Lord raising the poor from the dust and lifting the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes. This was the prayer of a woman who had been on the ash heap, who had been provoked by Peninnah year after year, who had been misread by the priest, who had given back the very thing she had wept for, and out of that full experience, not before it, this is what came out of her. My heart exults in the Lord. The identity that was being formed in the closed season was not the identity of the barren woman. It was the identity of the one who could pray this prayer after the opening. Chosen one, what is being formed in you in the season of the Peninnah provocation and the Eli misreading and the lips moving without sound is the identity that will carry the prayer of exaltation after the Lord opens the womb. You will speak of what he does for those on the ash heap because you were on it, and people will hear it as testimony that cannot be fabricated. I want to pause here and speak with honesty. Because this word tonight, Hannah at Shiloh, the prayer that was misread as drunkenness. The Lord remembered Hannah, the double portion in the closed season. The calling born to be given back required someone to sit in that text the way Hannah sat before the Lord at Shiloh, until what it said to the specific person watching from their own long waiting season became clear, and bringing that word to the platform, keeping the platform going, making it available to the next Hannah who searches in her year of being provoked again and needs to hear, "The Lord remembered," that requires resources. YouTube has a feature called Super Thanks. It is below this video. I want to say plainly what it is and what it is not. It is not the vow. Your Samuel is already being formed. The Lord remembered your name before you found this video. But if tonight the Lord remembered landed in the place where the long waiting has been living, if she was heard named something you needed confirmed, and you have the means to say, "This word reached me in my Shiloh moment," I want it to reach the next Hannah who is weeping and not eating, and whose lips are moving without sound. Super thanks. Is that saying, not seed faith, not payment for the opened womb? The double portion extended to the next person sitting at the doorpost before the Lord has remembered their name in the visible small, voluntary received as exactly what it is. And if this is not your season, if the Peninnah provocation is loudest right now because the resources reflect the closed thing, your "The Lord remembered my name" in the comments is the prayer. It is the vow. It is the moment her lips moved without sound, and heaven heard everything. The Lord hears what Eli misreads. Now hear the warning, do not skip this. After Hannah left Samuel at Shiloh, Eli's sons were there. The text calls them worthless men. They were taking from the offerings by force. They were treating the offering of the Lord with contempt. And they were present in the same house where Samuel would grow up and hear the voice of God in the night. The text says Samuel was ministering before the Lord in the presence of Eli, not away from the contamination, in the presence of it, learning discernment in an environment where the worthless sons of the priest were corrupting the offering, and the Lord still called Samuel, still spoke to him, still used the same house where the contempt was operating to deliver the word that would reshape a generation. Chosen one, in the 72 hours after tonight, in the window between the Lord remembered and the full manifestation of what was remembered, the worthless sons will be present, not Peninnah provoking. Something more subtle, the thing in the environment that treats the offering with contempt. The voice that questions whether what is forming is real. The presence that has been in the house all along and cannot see the Samuel being raised up because they are too distracted by the contempt. Do not let the worthless sons determine whether you hear the voice in the night. Samuel heard because he was listening, not because the environment was clean. Stay in the listening posture when the voice calls your name, whether you recognize it at first or not. Say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant hears." Archangel Michael stands guard over the Samuel being formed. His mandate, what is being raised up in the presence of the contempt, is protected from the contempt. The worthless sons of Eli were judged. Samuel was preserved. Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." The weapon of the Peninnah provocation, the weapon of the Eli misreading, the weapon of the worthless sons who treat the offering with contempt. None shall prosper because the Lord remembered. And what the Lord remembers, the Lord keeps. Declare this with me out loud. Right now, the Lord has remembered my name, not in this moment of declaring it, before this moment. In the year, I wept and would not eat. In the season, the lips were moving without sound. In the Shiloh moment, when the priest misread the prayer, the Lord heard what Eli did not understand. I release the Peninnah provocation as the sign of proximity, not the evidence of permanent closing. The adversary provokes when the appointment is near, not when it is distant. I present the vow. What is being formed in this season is not for me to keep. It is for the assignment, for the generation that needs what this season is producing. The Samuel that will anoint the Davids who are still in the field and have not yet been called in. I will give it back. The way Hannah gave Samuel back, not reluctantly, with a prayer of exaltation. My horn is exalted in the Lord. The Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. He raises the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap. I have been on the ash heap, and the Lord raises those who sit there. Speak, Lord, for your servant hears. In Jesus' name, amen. Chosen one, if tonight the Lord remembered reached the place where the long waiting has been living, if she was heard named, what you have been needing confirmed, like this video, let it be the moment after Eli said, "Go in peace." The peace that settled before the evidence came. The face that was no longer sad before the womb was yet opened. Go to the comments right now and type, "The Lord remembered my name," not the answered prayer. The certainty that the prayer was heard. Hannah left Shiloh with a different face before Samuel was conceived. The peace came before the evidence. Let the declaration come before the evidence. Subscribe, because the next word carries the full instruction for the season after the opening. What it looks like when Samuel arrives. How to hold what God gives while keeping the vow to give it back. How to pray Hannah's second prayer, the prayer of exaltation from the ash heap without losing the memory of the ash heap that makes it credible. The instruction for after Shiloh is coming. Do not miss it. Find the person who came to your mind during this word, the one who is in their year of the Peninnah provocation, whose lips are moving without sound, whose prayer has been misread by the people who should have known. Who does not know yet that the Lord is remembering. Send this to them. Tell them, go in peace. The God of Israel has heard your petition. The face can change before the womb opens. The peace comes before the evidence. The Lord remembers. And what the Lord remembers is never permanently closed. Go now, chosen one. Go as the one whose name was remembered. Go with the face that changed before the answer arrived. Go with the vow already made, the surrender already present in the asking, the willingness to give back the very thing you are most desperate to receive. The Samuel is being formed, and his name will carry the testimony of the hearing every time you call it. Amen.